Hello, good afternoon, good morning. Thank you for joining us a little bit ahead of time. Is everyone joining and getting their coffee, tea, water ready? We're expecting quite a number of participants today. So we're going to give everyone a minute or two, and then we're going to get started. But while we're all getting situated, we'd love to hear where you're joining us today from, maybe what nonprofit you're with, or maybe where in the country are you joining? I'm myself in New York City, and Nick, you're in not far
Mm,
from the city, right?
Just north of New York City as well.
Perfect, perfect, wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. We're very excited to have you today. Hi, Mary. Oh, awesome. Joining from Habitat for Humanity in Virginia. Welcome. All right, all right. So we're 1 minute in, and we want to be respectful of everyone's time. And this is a speed learning session. So we're gonna go ahead and start our session today. So once again, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited. My name is Yulia Zhernevaya. I'm head of strategy and growth at GiveEffect. GiveEffect is a nonprofit software platform which is designed for nonprofits who are tired of using multiple systems for donors, volunteers, event marketing, you name it, and ready to consolidate, streamline their operation, have everything in one place to achieve better financial stability, but also get a greater result. And today, I'm so excited. I'm joined by Nick. Nick, I'm going to pass it to you to introduce yourself and your company.
Yeah, thanks, Yulia. Nick Mikulewski here, Senior Sales Manager at The Giving Block. We are a technology company that makes it easy for donors to give cash and non-cash assets. And we made our name about 6 years ago as the leaders of crypto philanthropy. And we specialize in crypto donations, but all kinds of other non-cash assets as well. So we're a technology platform, and we make it really easy for donors to give. But most importantly, we work entirely with nonprofit organizations, helping them diversify their revenues and find new donors to engage with.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick. Again, we're so happy to have you here today. Well, for those who are joining our speed learning session first time, and for those who are coming back, I just wanted to take a moment to tell you a little bit more about what the session is and how it's going to run today. So speed learning session is a 30-minute session. It's quick and it's packed with practical and tactical information session. We're going to have 15 minutes of learning followed by 15 minutes of Q&A. So as we go throughout the session, if you have a questions, please put them down in the chat or in the Q&A session. And the last 10 minutes of this call, we're going to be spending and going through all of the questions that are submitted throughout this 30 minutes. And we're so excited because this is the learning session that we started back in September. And every month we are back here live and we're partnering with different thought leaders and companies in the industry to bring a lot of knowledge to nonprofits. So really great to have Giving Block and Nick today. And let's dive in. This month, December, we're going to be talking all about non-cash assets. And today is our first session. So we're going to dive into what are non-cash assets? And Nick, we need your help here because I know, okay, we have crypto, we have stock, but tell us a little bit more. What is qualified as a non-cash asset donation?
Yep. So, a non-cash donation, as the name easily implies, right, is everything besides those cash and cash equivalent donations. So typically, the types of donations that we're most interacting with at the Giving Block is traditional stocks, securities, right? donor advised funds, and we'll talk about DAFs and the rise of DAFs and what goes into a DAF. And of course, probably one of the newest and hottest in the space, cryptocurrency. Now, there's certainly some other non-cash assets like real estate and fine art and things like that. A little bit more esoteric, but for what most
Mm.
nonprofits are typically used to dealing with, right? Sure, many of you very used to dealing with stocks and securities. But we'll talk about some of the new entrants to the space this session, donor advised funds and cryptocurrency. But crypto, stock, and DAF are kind of like the most common mixture that we typically see in the nonprofit space.
Wonderful. And let's dive a little bit more maybe in each of that. And I think crypto has been a big word out there for several years now. And you just mentioned that there are some exciting things happening with crypto and crypto donation, right? Right now.
Yeah, so for anybody who may be watching the news, we've seen the crypto markets really accelerate this year, and it's certainly a cycle that we've seen before. Though this year, there's been a lot more institutional players that have come into the space that really sort of changed the nature of crypto in general. And crypto philanthropy has been around for quite a long time. We professionalized this discipline starting back in 2018. But today, it's coincided really nicely with the year-end giving season. Crypto markets are at all-time highs, so you have millions of Americans that are now so tax advantaged to give in this asset over just about any other asset that's in their portfolio, certainly over cash. So it couldn't have lined up better for the end of year giving season, and we're starting to see a lot more nonprofits starting to embrace the cryptocurrency as a new trajectory to go, and especially with younger donors and being able to sort of future-proof their nonprofit operations. And certainly, it's interesting how the great wealth transfer is also playing into that. So it's a really multifaceted, really interesting space. If you've not yet explored, the crypto scene, we've got a lot of great information to share here today, and I encourage you to look more into it after we get off the call.
Awesome. So that's very exciting. What about the other most common non-cash asset donation? You mentioned DAFs. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, so for anybody who hasn't heard, about DAFs or and again to explain things, a donor advised fund,
Mm.
it's easy to sort of maybe start with a little bit of a comparison of what a donor advised fund is. Everybody's probably familiar with a 401k for retirement contributions, maybe a health savings account for medical expenses. A donor advised fund is a similar tax advantaged account, though instead of retirement or medical expenses, it's designed explicitly for philanthropy. It's designed precisely for giving. So everything that's put into that DAF has to go to a charity. That's the only way that those dollars or those assets can exit that vehicle. So whatever is put into that DAF, the donor gets an immediate tax write-off for the value that they're putting into that fund, into that account at the time that they're
Mhm.
donating. And it gives donors flexibility on how they want to grant out that money over some period of time. So it's really great for donors that, want a little bit of flexibility. Maybe they don't know where they want to put all those funds into a single organization,
Mhm.
or they want to use some, make some smart financial and tax moves at year end that allows them to grant out over a period of months or even years down the line. So it's a really innovative tool. It's something that a lot of people still haven't necessarily heard of. It's not something
Right.
that your financial advisor is typically bringing up when you're sort of talking to that person, but it's gained in popularity, especially in the last couple of years. So if you haven't heard about DAFs, take a look at it. It's something that is really accelerating both in the nonprofit space and in the donor space as well.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I recently had a conversation with a client of ours, and they mentioned that now 30%, up to 30% of all their donations are coming from the DAFs,
Yeah.
which is very interesting because traditionally they're a food bank, they're a more traditional type of nonprofits, a lot of checks, a lot of your cash donations. So it's very interesting to see. So would you agree? You mentioned it's the new trend in the past 2 years. Would you, if I mean, I'm not sure if the comparison is the right word here, but if we look at different non-cash assets, would you say rise of doves is one of the trends? here?
Absolutely. And there's a lot of things that you can put into a DAF. I think one of the most interesting ones is that we've seen as people have put cryptocurrency into DAFs, and the
Oh,
power
interesting.
that that's given to donors. So there have been, many times where let's just even take like what's happened over the last year, for example.
Mm.
During this year, at one point in the year, a single unit of Bitcoin was worth about $50,000. So if a donor put that $50,000 into a DAF, they got that immediate $50,000 tax write-off. That's great. But again, when assets are in a DAF, and this is something I neglected to mention in my first explanation, they're allowed to grow over time. And those assets are typically, invested. So the
Mhm.
value gets to rise. So here we are now. I may have put $50,000 of crypto into my DAF earlier this year. Bitcoin's now trading at $101,000. So I've now just doubled the amount that I can grant out. So the
Wow.
great thing is, if I put 50K in and I was going to say grant out $10,000 to my favorite nonprofit every year for the next 5 years, the market has just given me another 5 years of donations. Or maybe I want to double the amount that I was going to donate on an annual basis. So the power of DAFs are really great, and putting assets into those DAFs can be a great way to build that long-term giving across all the sort of ups and downs that nonprofits go through. So, yeah, for everyone out there, don't sleep on DAFs, and educating your donors about the use of DAFs.
That's fascinating. You can just literally double the impact of your donation. Wow. And so interesting. But as you're talking about these different scenarios and different non-cash assets, I think everyone is interested. Who are those donors? Because as a nonprofit, of course, you want to learn, you know your donor base, you know your supporters base, right? If we're talking about like traditional types of fundraising through appeals and events and so on, you get a lot of opportunity to get to know them and to interact them, and maybe you're more, as a nonprofit, you're more familiar with who those people are. What about non-cash asset donors? Like, what can you tell us about them?
Yeah, so for many nonprofits out there, there's some of the exact same donors that already know you and already
Mm.
perhaps give to you. Certainly for the younger donors, this is some of these assets are new territory. So having some technology that makes it really easy for them to give in these assets is certainly key. And I think there was a little bit of a question of like, which kind of organizations is this better for?
Hmm.
If you had asked me this question maybe like 10 years ago, I think we probably would have had, or maybe not even that long ago, maybe 5 years ago, we probably would have had some clear kind of distinctions of like, well, if you're sort of this small organization, limited budget, limited staff, that getting into the non-cash side of things would have been a much bigger lift, would have been a much harder task. And so I would have probably said, yeah, this is really more reserved for those larger organizations, those larger teams. The
Okay.
technology advances have become so good that this has now brought the barrier of entry way down. And so I think this is almost something that's critical across the nonprofit ecosystem. So it doesn't matter if you're a blue chip charity or you're a very
Mm.
local grassroots organization, having these tools available, and the technology is now so accessible to donors. It makes it a really a tool that's got to be in your toolkit. And just thinking about things in general, I mean, 90% of the wealth in the United States is held in assets, not in cash. I think as of
Oh,
2024,
wow.
there's about $20 trillion that's held in cash and cash equivalents. It doesn't even come close to the
Mm.
$170 trillion that are held in assets. So again, definitely have to have a presence in the space for sure.
This is some really good statistic in support of the non-cash asset donation. No, that's fantastic. So fascinating. And it's interesting to hear that it's really the matter. It sounds like it's more the matter of giving opportunity for those donors to give through new avenues versus finding new donors who have these abilities to give in this way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just being in the market, right, is the name of the game. And we kind of say, it's not about, timing these trends, whether it's in stocks, whether it's, in crypto, things like that. Don't try to time the market, just be in the market, because the organizations that have just let their donors know that these options are available are those first port of call when these giving opportunities present themselves, and again, really varies from individual to individual as well. So you're not just trying to have something in place for just that really trendy, one time, happening in a year. You're something that's available to you throughout the entire year across not just everything that you're doing as a nonprofit, but all those moments of generosity that may strike on the donor side.
Yeah, fantastic. Another thing I wanted to ask you a little bit more about, and you mentioned this when we spoke about DAFs, but why donors now are more, or maybe some donors are more drawn towards giving through crypto, stock, donor advice funds, and so on?
Yeah. So I think the technology really lends itself, to that. It's now, so easy to get into some of these investments. And, for a lot of donors too, there's a great tax incentive, and for maybe those folks that are thinking about, the DAF side or even the crypto side, maybe just taking crypto for example. I'm sure that's maybe an area that a lot of people on this call maybe not have not had the most experience with. There's no kind of special rules or requirements for cryptocurrency. It's treated as a property asset by the IRS, the exact same incentives that people use to donate stock, and it's the exact same tax incentive that has seen $250 billion be put into DAFs. It's the exact same thing there. So it's an appreciated asset. I can donate that to a charity and get a tax write-off. So it's no different. So if you're a nonprofit out there that is able to accept stocks, there is no reason why you shouldn't also look into accepting cryptocurrency. It operates the exact same way. So it's not exotic. And what we do at the Giving Block is we're automatically converting that to cash, just like you already do when someone donates a share of Apple stock. You're immediately liquidating that for cash and it's going right into your bank account. Crypto is no different. In fact, it just moves in a matter of seconds rather than needing days to go through, the traditional stock market. And of course, we don't have to worry about market opens or brokers. Crypto markets are open 24/7. So it's a really versatile tool and a tax smart way to give for donors.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. No, this is so interesting. And we're right on time to start our Q&A session. And actually, one of the questions are a great follow-up to what we were already discussing. And I'm so curious if you have more advice for Mary here, Nick. So for everyone, thank you for those who already submitted the question in a Q&A. Please feel free to send more questions our way. And the next about 10 minutes, we're going to spend going through that. So here's the question from Mary. Mary, thank you so much for the question. And goes, we serve a rural area the size of Delaware. How do we reach those who have these deaths?
Yeah. For a lot of donors, they are on your website looking for these options. I think one of the things that we tend to see a lot at the Giving Block is someone may have the ability to accept some of these assets, but it typically requires a donor to reach out, call us, send us an email, get into a
Right.
conversation. And a lot of times that might be the biggest barrier for donors, especially on the younger side, like the under 50 crowd. Like we've all grown up with this technology and we've got iPhones and, we can do a lot of things right on our iPhone. And we want to make it just as easy to give as well. We may not want to get into a really long drawn out conversation. So what I would say first is just making it easy to know that you accept these assets is one of the biggest things. And then having an easy way to automate the acceptance of these assets. As I said, the technology now is really good at the Giving Block. We specialize in this. So it doesn't matter if you are in, a big metropolitan area or you're in a small local community. Having the ability for someone to give from their DAF directly on your own website is probably one of the easiest things you do. And it aligns with what modern donor preferences are looking for. So You may have donors that are used to going through the traditional route. They know how to call their broker. They know how to do that. They know how to give through those traditional vehicles. Fantastic. That's great. But for everybody else that's coming in over the next prevailing years, they're looking for those automated ways to give, and they're giving to those organizations that make it really easy.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a matter of we're all now, like every nonprofit now have some type of credit card, like accept the easy form
Yeah.
to complete the donation through credit card, right? Or through ACH and so on. And it's the matter of offering similar easy way to donate through the other non-cash methods.
Yeah, exactly. And imagine if you took away that credit card option and just said, hey, if you want to give via a credit card, give us a call. I think you'd see a really big difference in
Yeah.
fundraising outcomes.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for that, and also for Mary and everyone on the call. Next week we are having our second sessions at same time on Thursday, and we are going to be diving deeper into how can you actually start accepting non-cash asset donation, and we go a little bit more into different strategies, technology, and so on. So, the link will be shared if you didn't register yet in the chat. So we'd love to have you there and talk a little bit more about it. Right. So the next question is, let's see, for the DApps, does a donor need to identify how much they will donate annually, or is this based on a tax calculation? So I guess how do donor distribute funds?
Yeah. So
Okay.
for donors, whatever they're putting in there is, that amount that they could feasibly grant out, provided that that asset isn't also growing over time. So they get whatever they put into that DAF, whatever that fair market value is at the time that they're giving it to the DAF. That's the immediate tax write-off that they get. So if I'm donating, 10,000 shares worth of some stock, I'm getting a $10,000 tax write-off. If I'm donating $75,000 worth of crypto, I'm getting that immediate $75,000 tax write-off. Then I can choose how much I want to grant out over some period of time. I could do it all at once in one shot if I want to, or I can do it over, a number of months and years. And again, there's a lot of great tools in some of these DApp providers that provide all kinds of like tax considerations. We have a lot of great calculators on our side as well in terms of how to understand the impact of the gift that you might be making from a tax perspective. Yeah, I mean the technology now is making it really easy for donors to understand how to make these tax smart gifts, and vehicles like donor advised funds have just been absolutely gaining popularity, especially over the last couple of years. So wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing more employers even offer things like DAFs to their employees,
Interesting.
and maybe even doing like a traditional match, kind of like what you see with 401ks and things like that. There are some really innovative companies that do that, but it's still really early days, but it's definitely gaining in popularity.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you, Nick. And DApp is very popular topic, I can tell you, because we have a lot of questions about that. Janet also asking, can you review again how actually both crypto and DApps help nonprofit? I guess, can you kind of summarize the key benefits to a nonprofit?
Yeah. So for those nonprofits, again, it's the ability to, build that sustained relationship with someone over time, and also gives you the flexibility to sort of move through those, maybe more uncertain periods if you have a donor who's willing to, give across, a sustained period, right? It's something that you don't necessarily have to, rely on donations that come in at a specific, time of the year, or, only once throughout the year. So putting crypto into a DAF has just been something that has been really interesting to see, just because of the big appreciation that we've seen. It's one of those areas where, again, whatever I'm putting into that DAF can get, continue to be reinvested. So if I'm putting stock into that DAF, right, I might be putting shares of Apple in there, and knowing that share of Apple stock may be much higher in a year or two from now, and so that can continue to allow me to continue to give over a sustained period of time. Crypto's been very similar as well, and I mentioned that example about what we've seen earlier this year. So yeah, a lot of these providers allow for Donors to put crypto into a DAF, and there's many providers out there that do that. So again, it's just the ability for a donor to get an immediate tax write-off and give them the flexibility to give over time, to give in a sustained way. So it's a really versatile tool for nonprofits.
Thanks, Nick. And Janet actually had a follow-up question, which I think is great. You spoke about appreciating, right? For example, you put a crypto into a DAF and now it's instead of 50,000, 75 or 100,000. What happens when it's depreciate? Because as a donor, you're getting immediate tax write-off for $50,000. So what happened there?
Yeah, sure. And in that sense, I mean, if you're not giving out, all of that, or if you're giving it out over time and the value does dip below, the what you initially put in there, well, you've already received that tax write-off, right? If I gave, $50,000 worth of crypto and, 6 months later, it was only worth $40,000, well, then I've lost some ability to kind of give. So yeah, there are certainly are fluctuations. It's not always just, up only. But again, it does give me some flexibility. And for those nonprofits that have, a tool to give DAFs along with all of the other ways to give, it just provides donors the ability to move in and out of what asset might be better for them at that given time. Again, there's certainly the ability for that asset to fluctuate. But again, over the long term, and when a lot of donors are putting assets into a DAF, they're looking to give across the long term, or maybe it's just haven't really found the right cause yet, and I want to take my time with my philanthropy.
Mhm. And this is where we get, I think, with this question, another question we received on the registration form is about the regulations. Like if there's any specific regulations that nonprofits should understand or consider when they start accepting non-cash assets. So can you tell us a little bit more? If there's, I'm sure there's maybe a lot of them, right? But if you can summarize to some key things that you should keep in mind when considering accepting non-cash asset donation.
Yeah, sure. And again, this is where I probably need to give the standard, like, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not, I'm not a professional tax accountant. Consult your tax professional or your relevant professionals. But what it boils down to is, just having clear, gift acceptance rules and policies, good communications with donors on how these donations are being used, a good understanding of, the IRS obligations. Certainly at the Giving Block, these are a lot of things that we take care of for nonprofits so that they have a really good understanding of the rules of the road and what's required. We provide a lot of education, not only to nonprofit teams, but also to donors as well. So that everybody is apprised of the benefits, the considerations, the rules, all of that. So just good record keeping, and I think it's something that across all of these assets have a lot of very long-standing rules. And even on the crypto side, again, this follows the exact same rules as stock donations. So and when it comes to charitable contributions in crypto, there's some very familiar rules of the road that are no different to what many nonprofits are already comfortable with and already understand from having accepted traditional securities for decades. Yeah, consult your professional, but I think it's good to just have some clear record keeping and clear policies.
Amazing, wonderful. And we're 2 minutes away from the end of our session today. So if you have any last minute question, please put them in Q&A. But so far, I have a last question here for you, Nick, is about the Giving Block. I don't know if you can share, but what are the cost of the Giving Block services for nonprofits?
Yeah. Yeah, really sort of depends on what the nonprofit is looking to do. We have some organizations that are really interested in being very engaged with donors. They want to really understand how to stand out with younger donors. What's really interesting about the crypto space is that a lot of crypto wealth is held in the over 60-year-old crowd. I mean, they're have very substantial financial portfolios, and now there are regulated and compliant ways in the traditional financial markets of getting exposure to cryptocurrency. I think one of the hottest things right now is financial advisors now have a way of getting crypto exposure into a traditional, stock and bond portfolio. Really depends on how much an organization wants to be out there cultivating that crypto demographic. Some want to take a little bit more of a passive approach. We just want to have a mechanism for doing that if someone is inquisitive about that option. Yeah, really kind of depends on your nonprofit and what your objectives are. But either side of that coin, we have some fantastic options, whatever your motivations.
Perfect. And we do have, I think in the chat, we're going to put right now the link. If you are interested in connecting with the Given Block and connecting with Nick, his scheduling link is right there in the chat. So feel free to use the link and set up a call and chat more about it. But we are on time, and it was, wow, it was a lot of information, and it was such a, I mean, I learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone on the call I learned a lot as well. Nick, thank you so for sharing all your knowledge today with us about all the different types of non-cash asset donations. And thank you for everyone for being here. Again, we are meeting again with the Given Block next week on the 12th and on the 19th. And we're going to talk more about how you can actually start accepting crypto, not only crypto, non-cash asset donations. How can you make it part of your fundraising strategy, how it's connected to your technologies, your CRM, and so on and so forth. So more information coming in the next 2 weeks. But for now, really grateful to be here with everyone today. And Nick, do you have anything to share with the group at the end of the call before we jump
Uh,
in?
no, I would just say, if you have any questions, I'd love to continue a conversation one-on-one if you'd like to learn more.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And for everyone, when you jump off, there's going to be just 2 questions, a quick survey. We'd love to hear your feedback, and we look forward talking and seeing you again next week. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.